If you live in the United States, there's a high chance that the food you eat was produced by a large industrial farming operation, owned and operated by a white farmer and cultivated by an immigrant farmer. There is a significant lack of diversity in farm ownership. Of the 3.2 million producers counted by the 2017 census, 95% are white. Black and Indigenous producers and other producers of color make up less than 5% of the total. However, about 80% of farm workers who cultivate the food are Indigenous or Latinx. Despite the growing awareness around sustainable farming practices and the movement for food sovereignty, our farming and agriculture sector is becoming increasingly consolidated and less diverse. Why is this the case, and what can we do to change this? The legacy of agriculture in the U.S. is one of stolen land and stolen labor. Native people were violently removed from the lands they lived on and cultivated for thousands of years. Genocide, both physical and cultural, ensued. As surviving Indigenous peoples were relocated, their traditional lands were claimed by colonizers and formally redistributed to settler colonists. Traditional practices were forcibly replaced by Anglo-American style ownership and land management. Throughout the 17th and 18th centuries, people were abducted from Africa and enslaved in American colonies. They were exploited and used to labor in fields of cotton, sugar, and tobacco for no pay, and under the most inhumane conditions. Whole generations of people were reduced to property and into a life of enslavement that would last another 250 years, and a campaign of racism, discrimination, and terror that lasts well into present day. Capitalism, rooted in white supremacy, remains the driving force of the food and farming industry. This system continues to exploit workers and the land. Racial, ethnic, and gender lines continue to shape whose labor and opportunities matter. Still, many BIPOC farmers and fishers are at the forefront of the agroecological movement in rural and urban settings, and are successfully feeding nutritious food to local communities, even during the COVID-19 pandemic. And BIPOC producers are doing more than that. They are nurturing regional economies, reclaiming traditional farming practices, redefining relationships with the land and waters, upholding conservation values, and building self-determined communities that center people that the industrial food system has failed. We need a system in which they can thrive. But where do we begin? 1. We can start by making it easier for BIPOC producers to access and retain land. Due to a history of discriminatory practices and ongoing treaty violations, relatively few people from BIPOC communities own their land. Along with a lack of generational wealth and barriers to accessing legal and financial resources, BIPOC farmers face multiple challenges. Land has also been confiscated from BIPOC producers. For Black producers, legal loopholes like heirs property played a part in the loss of thousands of acres of farmland. And many Japanese farmers had their land stolen during World War II. 2. We need to make it possible for BIPOC producers to easily access government subsidies, loans, crop insurance, and other financial assistance such as grants. Institutional racism plays a large part in preventing BIPOC producers from accessing federal and state allocated funds. Ending discriminatory practices and increasing BIPOC representation in decision-making is critical to ensuring these funds are equitably distributed. 3. We need to create pathways for BIPOC producers to secure markets for their products. The current system favors large-scale, industrial operations that can provide high quantities at low cost over small and mid-scale producers. 4. We need food and farming systems that make it possible for farmers and fishers to continue to pay their workers well and provide them with fair working conditions and pathways for growth. Now, more than ever, we need a system in which millions more people can thrive